Good morning and welcome to another episode of Unlocking You 2.0. My name is Balwinder Marwaha. Alongside with me is Spencer Bonin. I'm your transformational leadership coach, and Spencer Bonin is your certified emotion code and body code practitioner. So we're talking about something interesting today, and we're talking about the way people treat you. And you're probably thinking, well, these guys are always trying to talk about ways we can improve ourselves, but how does that have to do with anything the way people treat me? I'm confused, right? Maybe.
Totally.
Well, you'll be shocked to know the way people treat you. There's a lot of factors that play into it, why you're being treated the way you are. So let's start off, Spencer, with the subconscious side, because that's the most fascinating on why people treat you the way they do, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that because you're absolutely right. Like there are so many things that could be possibly happening in the body code and or in the background subconsciously. And what
Mhm.
I really want to focus on today is something called broadcast messages. Now, I know everyone out there, I know you've had an experience with this where, you kind of walk into a bar or a room or something like that and you get
Mhm.
a read on people. You feel their vibe, so to speak. You really feel like, oh, I don't know, that person seems like kind of sketchy, or maybe, oh, that person seems like really fun. Like you know the vibe, and whether it's body language or their vibe or whatever,
Mhm.
the vibe kind of dictates their body language. That's then there's a whole thing there. But what I want to talk about today is the fact that our brains are both vibrational, or they're transmitters and receivers of vibrational frequency. That's basically
Yeah.
what they are. So we can pick up other people's vibes, and if we can pick up other people's vibes, other people can pick up our vibe.
Mhm.
Now, when I talk about this in something called a broadcast message, it's something in the body code where it's kind of like, imagine you're wearing a t-shirt. Excuse me. Imagine you're
Mhm.
wearing a t-shirt and the t-shirt says, kick me. And other people are like, man, I really want to kick this person. I don't know why. And you're like sitting over here wondering, like, why do people keep kicking me? This doesn't make
Mhm.
any sense.
Yeah.
Well, it's potentially because of these things called broadcast messages, right? Like that's what
Mhm.
this is. It's a subconscious broadcast that you're telling other people how to treat you in some
Yeah.
form or fashion. And it's so cool. So with these messages, there's generally two different types. The
Mhm.
first one is something like a command message, where it's basically like, I mean, who out there, has been a single guy or single girl and maybe like, man, I keep getting rejected. I keep going on dates and then
Mhm.
they don't want to go to a second date, or they don't want to, be in a relationship or whatever. Well, maybe you have a broadcast message that says abandon me or leave
Yeah.
me. Or maybe you go to the bar and you're an attractive person, but for
Mhm.
whatever reason, people just don't really notice you.
Yeah.
Like, that happens all the time. Well, maybe you have a broadcast message that says ignore me.
Yeah.
And that would be one of these command messages we're talking about.
Mhm.
Or another really interesting one, maybe you find that people treat you almost like you don't know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Or maybe there's something where it's like, oh, they the one that I'm kind of talking about here is maybe there's a broadcast message of treat me like a child. This one has
Mhm.
been very interesting, where they almost like don't respect your opinion to the point where you're just like, I don't really, it's okay, but
Yeah.
they treat you like you're a kid. That
Yeah.
could be one as well. The other version of a broadcast message is something like called a descriptive message, where it's like you're subconsciously telling people what you
Mhm.
think about yourself. So that could be something like I'm stupid, or I'm not important, and you're
Mhm.
subconsciously telling this to other people. Or here's one, I'm unlovable, or I'm untrustworthy. So
Mhm.
how awesome is that for business if you're out there meeting people and subconsciously you're saying I'm untrustworthy, I'm not trustworthy, or I'm
Yeah.
unlovable? Bad for business, bad for love, right? So
Absolutely.
these little messages are out there, and they're telling people how to treat you and subconsciously showing people kind of your vibe, which then
Mhm.
can throw off the whole thing and really get them to treat you in a way that you do not want them to treat you. So that's kind of what's going on subconsciously. What's going on consciously, Bally?
Yeah, so thank you so much for that, Spencer. And it's crazy because we don't even realize, prior to all this, I had no clue. But when I was being worked on, and you or other practitioners were, Emmanuel in particular, were finding broadcast messages. It made total sense. I'm like, oh my God, like this makes sense that, this is why this was happening and this is why this was happening. So it is pretty incredible when you do see that, and those things come up. But let's talk about consciously how people treat you. Like, you are a reflection of your inner self. You may not realize that, but when you go out into the world, you are reflecting your inner self. And when I say inner self, I'm not talking about your subconscious mind. I'm talking about your conscious mind and what you believe of yourself and what you think of yourself. So if you're always in this battle in your mind that, oh man, I'm not as good as everyone else, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not as attractive as others. When you go out there, you're automatically putting that message out without even realizing it.
Yeah.
So what happens is people will start to treat you the way you're putting out yourself out. Now, what you don't also realize though is the way you talk and the way you express, the language you use, the words you use, without you even knowing, you will maybe start talking down on yourself. Or maybe you won't give yourself the respect in conversations. And so that allows people to treat you the way they're treating you. And you're not even realizing that, oh, I'm saying negative things about myself, or I'm putting myself down through conversation, or, I'm not using the right words that are going to require people to give me respect. And, really, it's a lack of respect is what we feel the most when we go out there, is that, people aren't respecting me, or they're not loving me, or they're not being fair to me. But that all comes down to how you're positioning yourself. Now, there's the subconscious side, which you cannot control, but the conscious side of what you can control is, what language are you using? Are you a person that says sorry all the time? Are you one of those, oh, I'm so sorry, or I'm sorry for this, or I'm sorry for that? Turn that around. And maybe you show up late for something, and instead of saying, sorry, I'm late, say, thank you for waiting for me. I truly appreciate that. Now, instead of putting yourself down, you're still apologizing. You're still giving them thanks for waiting, and you're acknowledging the fact that you were late, but you've changed the language. If someone points out an error and you've made a mistake somewhere, you can say, oh, sorry, I messed up. Or you can say, hey, thank you so much. That's not something I realized. I appreciate the fact that you let me know.
Yeah.
Again, you've still acknowledged the fact that you made a mistake or you didn't do what you needed to, but you've changed the language. And so when you change the language, people will start treating you completely differently. And the last thing I want to add to this on the conscious side is, set your boundaries. If someone is treating you a certain way, you need to set a boundary, and you need to let them know what's acceptable and what's not. I remember years ago, I had a coworker who would always kind of poke fun, and there was always undertones, and he kept doing it until one day I said, hey, listen, I don't appreciate that. And I
Yeah.
told him straight out, and I was very stern. I was kind of harsh with my words at the time, because I was like, yeah, I just, you can only take so much before you like let it get to you, right?
Totally.
But the fact that I set my boundary after that, it never was a non-issue. Never came up again, never said anything. In fact, even to this day, the way he speaks to me and the way he treats me is different from the way he used to treat me before I laid down that boundary, before I said, listen, I don't appreciate this. This is not okay. So set your boundaries. The first time, hey, you know what? It's okay. You can forgive them. But the second time it happens, it's now your fault because you failed to set a boundary. And the third time and the fourth time, and if it continues to happen, the blame is partially on you because you have not set a boundary. Now, if you've set a boundary and this continues to happen, you don't need that person in your life. Okay. That's the reality, is that that person does not deserve to be in your life. If you've set the boundary, if you've done everything you need to. And so maybe you're thinking, well, what about my significant other? What about my spouse? Or what about my kids? I've set the boundaries. I've told them what's okay. I've told them what's not okay. That's when you say, okay, well, I'm going to send a message to Spencer, or I'm going to pick up the phone and call him because I know him. Because I've got something going on the subconscious side that even after setting boundaries, even after being polite, even after doing all the right things, I'm still being treated this way. Maybe you do have a broadcast message that needs to be worked on. And that's where you can connect with Spencer. And really, he's going to do a complimentary session with you, and he's going to connect with you and find out, look, what is your biggest concern? What is it that's truly holding you back? And he'll see what we find, and he'll share that with you. And then you'll be able to move forward knowing that, oh, my hunch was true, or my gut instinct was true, or, wow, I'm so glad I did this because now I know something about myself that I didn't realize was affecting me.
Yeah.
So having said that, Spencer, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, what? No, not at all. That was phenomenal. I think that was really, really good. Oh, there's one thing I do just that kind of popped into my head, and it is, so sometimes you find stuff you're like, oh yeah, my hunch is right. But then other times we get in there and we find some stuff where you're just like, you know what? I had no idea that that was even there, but that makes so much sense. Oh my gosh, I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
So you might not have had a hunch, but it's just like, boom, oh yeah, it's actually this. And then you're just like, you're just like, yeah, that makes so
Yeah.
much sense. I never even realized that. And then boom, from that
Absolutely.
moment forward, things just start to really, really shift and change. So
Mhm.
that's the only other thing I wanted to say there. With that, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a very, very, very cool topic about broadcast message and people,
Mhm.
having people treat you a certain way, because I know this is something that I have really faced and battled over the years throughout my life, going through lots of bullying, lots of going through all that, that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
where I had a really hard time setting those boundaries. I had a really hard time with, the way people were treating me with certain ways because they saw me in a certain light. And now that I've going through body code, emotion code, all this kind of stuff, this has really even transformed my life as a result of that. Doing this,
Mhm.
what we're doing right now, back in
Yeah.
the day, no way. No way, Jose.
Yeah.
I'd be
No.
so scared of
Absolutely.
what other people are going to think. I'd be so scared of all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's these days now, it's like, no, people just need to know what this stuff is, right? So
Mhm.
it's a matter of getting in there, extracting those little things to be able to shine your light and really go out there and show the world who you really are. And
Yeah.
that's what we're meant to do here, is just to unlock you 2.0. So with that, Bally and I are working to close together with something called the Inside Out Institute. If you're interested in what we do, and you're interested in kind of figuring things out on a subconscious level or on a conscious level, go to
Mhm.
our website here at leadyourideallife.com. Right there, you'll see a couple of videos that are going to get you really excited about, what it is that we do, and kind of get this juices flowing for that.
Yes.
Get a little bit more in depth as to what we actually do.
Mhm.
Secondly, we every single week we have a weekly webinar, where basically you can go to www.2020 recovery manual. Yes, guys, 2020 is coming to an end. It's so soon, but
Yeah.
we
No kidding.
still have things to do to prep for 2021. So we still have
Mhm.
to go through a little bit of a recovery process,
Yeah.
because 2020 was an interesting year, we'll say.
Yes.
So you're going to want to get on that webinar. It's going to give you some amazing
Mhm.
tips on how to really create an even better 2021, and kind of
Yeah.
really get past whatever it was that 2020 was. And
Yes.
yeah, so with that, I hope you guys have a phenomenal rest of your day. Everything is in the description as well. So if you're interested in following the link, just go right there. And aside from that, have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you very soon. See you guys.
Awesome. Thank you very much.